Good
Yo.
evening, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network, the only podcast in existence that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2 ANT. Give me a follow on the old Twitter. If follows aren't your thing, completely acceptable. That's fine. It's not for everyone. Social media is not a great place. I'll gladly take the deed to your house or a blank check, whichever's easier, again, or a pot of gold, or a brand new car. I'm agreeable to most things. My fingers were crossed if you're watching this video because last week we had some issues going live with the traffic on the stream site. So my fingers were crossed in hopes that we could go live on time this week, and we were. And if you're a keen observer or listener, you would have heard me say the we. And that's because, once again, on this episode of Disguise Coverage, I am not alone on this episode. Mr. Russell Brown, draft expert Russell Brown, Woodward Sports Russell Brown, big-time player in the Detroit metro area, Russell Brown, and one half of the Steiner brothers.
I knew you were going there.
Ourselves. I did. Yeah, you had to know that I was going to do it. I got to tell you, and so before we get into this episode, when I put that tweet out because I love the Steiners, and I put out a tweet, and for those of you who don't know, I put out a tweet saying that the Steiner brothers are the most underrated tag team of all time. And Russ in the DM hit me and was like, so wait a minute, are the Steiners us? And I was like, I haven't been that happy for a comp in a very long time. And dude, like, you made my day, and I'm very happy. I'm very happy with that Steiner brothers comp.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't know you were that big of a fan of them, but I'm glad that you were. And I'm glad I was just like, I saw the picture of them and stuff, and I was like, you know what? Enough of the Marty Jannetty stuff. Even though I will say, you got Jannetti'd has to be put on a shirt. Like, we have to sell merchandise for sure on that. And like, that's like it's like when Disguise Coverage and the draft come together, we have Disguised Draft, and it's like, boom, you got Jannetty. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's amazing. But I'm happy to be back. I was a little short last week because I had some Lion stuff to do. So I was like, it's only fair and only right that I come back for another episode of Disguise Coverage to talk running backs, a group I really like. And honestly, my Wednesdays are open, so I like doing a little bit of stuff here with you because, again, it's the Steiner brothers. We're underrated. We're just kind of flying under the radar, talking ball, and going in depth too. So that's always fun.
That's why I love having you on. There is there's a divide, I feel like, sometimes in content creation in terms of the level of content and depth and what happens with people. And, not to get into too many particulars, but as we've talked on air and off air, I just respect what you know about the game, your ability to diagram it. And again, we use that phrase, and I don't use it lightly, but be able to talk ball, to sit there and talk about the X's and O's, the hows and the whys, to talk about prospects and know that, okay, like, this guy gets this grade, or this guy's a good or bad player. Well, why? Okay, cool. This is what he does with his hands or his feet or his hips, or this is the fit for the system, and this is the fit for this, and he works against this coverage, and so on and so forth. Like, you have that level of knowledge and that insight, and I like to think that I do as well. So being able to talk ball with someone like yourself is a very, very enjoyable thing for me, and we have a very enjoyable episode planned for you guys tonight. As Russ mentioned, we continue this position series here on Disguise Coverage, and tonight was running backs, and that was already going to be the plan. I'd reached out to Russ last week to confirm, and that's what I had lined up on the docket. And then recently, over the last week, running back has become a bit of a hot topic for the Buffalo Bills in particular, but also kind of in the landscape of the NFL, the value of running backs in today's NFL, drafting one in the first round. It's a very interesting conversation now in the NFL, and it pertains like heavily to the Buffalo Bills this year because for the second year in a row, they are linked to a running back in the first round. And so we're going to talk about that tonight on the show. We're going to talk about, in our first segment here, the value of taking a running back in round one in today's NFL and the value of a running back in the league and to the Buffalo Bills. Then we're going to talk about a guy who, is the one that I mentioned or alluded to earlier, the running back who's been linked to the Bills in mock drafts in the first round, Mr. Breece Hall. Then we're going to talk about who our RB1s are, best running back fits for the Bills, and this class as a whole, everything in depth, prospect grading, what you look for, what you like, what you don't like, talking about this class, fits on day 1, day 2, day 3, all that kind of stuff. We have a lot planned for you. But before we get into that, nice. He's talking about Dawn. I don't know where Dawn is, but I appreciate John being here. But before we get into content, you guys know the drill. One Pie Pizza, sponsor of Disguise Coverage, friend of the show, the best pizza in Buffalo, hands down. At first, when I first had them as a sponsor, I thought about mincing words a little bit and be like, oh, really good, or this and that. Now I'm just putting the stamp of approval. Don't care anymore. Hands down, best pizza in Buffalo. Sweet sauce pie, homemade blue cheese. They do different initiatives and drives every month for the community and for charities, and just they're good people making good pizza and great homemade blue cheese. I cannot stress it enough of how happy I am to have them as a partner. Find the online menu in the episode show notes here on YouTube or on whatever audio podcasting platform you are listening to Disguise Coverage on. Go check them out. They're fantastic. Get yourself some pizza. And just to continue with some plugs, while you're here, please drop a like. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Disguise Coverage to Cover One. Again, all the likes and stuff and the reviews and subscriptions especially, but definitely the likes, they go a long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears and helping the algorithms and all of that kind of stuff. Appreciate you guys. Russ, I appreciate you.
Likewise,
now let's get into the meat. Appreciate you. And now let's get into the meat of the show. We're making our intro right now. The music hits. We're coming out with our Michigan Letterman jackets, even though you wouldn't because you're a Michigan State guy.
I wouldn't be wearing that.
You wouldn't. I'll wear my Michigan Letterman jacket as one of the Steiners. You can wear something else, whatever you want to do. You can wear a Michigan State.
Easy.
There you go.
Yeah, Michigan State. That's fine.
We'll represent the whole state. That's cool. Let's do that. We're coming out. And we're coming out to talk about the running back value in the NFL draft, but also just kind of in general in today's NFL. It feels like there's, and I don't even think it's not even like a feel thing. I think it's a concrete thing at this point. There seems to be like a clear divide with people of who think a running back can be taken in the first round, whether it's Bills related, whether it's non-Bills related, and people who think, no, stay away. Running back is not good value in the first round. You can get the same level of production and value in round 2, round 3, round 4. There's people who would rather take a 5th round running back, so on and so forth. There's this clear separation now in people's minds, and it's muddied the waters. People don't even talk about first round grades or who could slip in at the end of the first round. It's just it's black and white. It's like, yes, you can take a running back in the first round, or no, you cannot. It's a death sentence.
Right.
Where do you stand on that, given the nature of the position in today's NFL?
I can see it from both sides here. I mean, I know a lot of people are on, like you just mentioned, are kind of on two different sides of the fence. Like one side, they're completely against it. Other sides, they're for it. And I understand, like, if you took one in the first round, if you are one of those handful of teams that have a complete roster, your cap situation is right, and it just makes sense. If that's one of the needs or overall just positions that you feel like might be one of the weakest on my teams, I just have to get better. And again, if you are one of the better teams in the league, you are probably picking in the back end of the first round. If you're making this happen late, it makes complete sense to me to why you would do it. But also, I feel like you have to view it from the scope of what's the talent level at in that class. So you go back to the Barkley draft. There was no way that guy was not going in the first round. It doesn't matter what he's been as a pro, the way he was in college, the impact that he had on the game. No matter what way the league was going, if 50 or even 45% of your offense was through a running back, it made sense to have that guy out there because he did so much. The same thing with Christian McCaffrey. Every now and again, you come through those guys. But the biggest worry, I think, with the position is they take so many shots. What happens to them in the longevity of things? But that's why I think it makes sense for them to be a first round pick if the talent level is there, but you get that 5th year option. It makes sense from that perspective that you kind of get that additional year on a little bit of a cheaper deal. And it's one of those things where rather than having to pay this guy 15, 16, 17, maybe $18 million a year to keep him after 4 years, I could keep him potentially for an extra year at maybe $10 to $12 million. Again, I don't know what that 5th year option looks like, but if I can save $6 million a year or maybe $8 million a year, when I play dollars and cents, it makes sense because I could add another key contributor in my team. Maybe it's an Arden Key on a 1 year, $7 million deal, but I'm making my team better. So I think it just depends on what's in the group and what's in the class. And in this group for this draft, I think you could make a case for one of three players in this class that makes sense to take them in the back end of the first round,
Mhm.
because I think there is a handful of teams in this draft that could afford to take a running back.
And that's a tremendous way to put it. It leads into my
There's
thought.
that's a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, bro, it's fantastic. I love the in-depth. And before I do that, we know the rules here. Super chat, get you pulled up immediately. I delayed it a little bit to let you finish your thought. Best highlights. Thank you very much for your donation and your super chat and for being here live. And he's got, this is not running back related. And it says off topic, but Stephon Diggs, question mark, do his new tweets worry you? I try not to read too much into players' tweets, just like the whole Instagram scrubbing thing that players do every offseason. It'll be like Tre'Davious White did it a couple years ago. I was like, oh my God, he changed his Instagram bio. Like, does he want out? Is this terrible? Like, is he gone? Does he want to leave? I try not to read too much into it. I think there's a lot of cryptic meaning and reading in between the lines. And so I don't do too much of it. In a perfect world, I would like there to be absolutely nothing worrisome whatsoever. I think there's a non-zero chance that this means something, to take Greg Thompson's phrase there. But no, they don't worry me tremendously. I think he knows his importance to this team. I also think the team has been open with him in terms of what his future is with the Bills and how they want to keep him around. So I guess there's some percentage of worry there, but no, I'm not like sitting here fretting and
No.
being very worrisome about his situation. Russ, I think you were spot on with the running back in the first round talk, because I put a tweet out earlier that I didn't even mean. It was in response to someone else's tweet. I don't even remember what it was. Running back is still, if your team is put together right, like you said, that is the key. If your team is built in the right way, adding a first round running back or signing a top level running back, anything like that, but we're talking draft here, so we'll keep it to that. Drafting a running back in the first round works if your team is built to support that feature, or if that is the one like tiny little missing link. I remember in the Barkley draft when he went at second overall in 2018, there were so many people that kept using the example of like, no, that's not the team that you want Saquon to go to. Like, that's not a team who should be taking a running back in round one. Like, a team that should take him would have been like the Packers, who were like
Yeah.
one little piece away. And it's like, put him on this juggernaut and boom, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
With the Bills, and I know a lot of people in here are obviously Bills fans. You look at it from the perspective of what can that piece do with Josh Allen and the offense. And I think a lot of it for Josh Allen, and I think for NFL offenses in general now, you think of the weaponry piece and it's always like, okay, well, receivers, tight ends. I feel like people don't look at the running back position in terms of the benefit that it can provide a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Today's NFL is very much pass heavy. Everybody thinks, you have to throw it a ton, throw it on first down, go for it on fourth down. If you don't have a quarterback, you're nothing. And in some ways, a lot of that is true. But a good running game helps out a quarterback. And more importantly, a dynamic running back who can be a threat out of the backfield as a receiver, whether it's in checkdowns, whether it's with screens, whether it's with swing passes, any type of anything. A running back that creates mismatches out of the backfield is a tremendous value for an offense. There's a reason James White was a fixture in New England with Tom Brady. There's a reason when Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay, they scooped up Gio Bernard, and Gio Bernard is that third down running back. There is value there. Now, you could make the case and be like, well, that's fine. Just sign a guy like that on the cheap and use him as a complementary piece. But there's the flip side of it of being like, okay, what if you could take one guy and combine all of that stuff? A guy who can run between the tackles and a guy who can be a receiving threat out of the backfield. Now you've got somebody who's not tipping tendency to a defense.
Right.
You've got a guy who's in there, who's not allowing the defense to key in.
Right.
And from the Bills' perspective, a big thought for me with the running back value in the draft is I like Devin Singletary, but defenses aren't game planning for Devin Singletary during the week. They're not up on the whiteboard being like, all right, guys, we got to stop 26 this week. What do we do to stop Devin Singletary? Some of that's the offensive line. Some of that's the commitment to the run. But Devin Singletary, he's above average at a lot of things. He's not a plus matchup. He's not a difference maker. He's not that next level player. It's unfair to compare, but like a Josh Allen, like a Stephon Diggs. You don't have that elite player in the backfield. You've got somebody who can get the job done. But for teams that are close to the top, like you said, it didn't work out in this example with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Look how many people, he's been hurt though too, but that Clyde Edwards-Helaire fit in Kansas City, it was like, wow, you got this guy who can be a threat out of the backfield and can run the ball, and you're adding him to the Chiefs offense that's already up there. Oh boy.
But also with Clyde, you had him at certain parts of the year where he was red hot. And
Yes.
then I think he ended up getting hurt,
Yeah.
or he missed a game, and then they like never used him the exact same way. Like they
No.
brought in Damian Williams, they're bringing in different backs like
And
Ronald
their
Jones.
commitment to the run has been weird as a whole anyway.
Yeah, but I mean they're the team that down at the 3 yard line they'll go two straight pass plays and Patrick Mahomes running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and then third and goal from the 3 they hand it off thinking they're gonna catch somebody off guard, and then rather than like going okay let's fix what we do down in the red zone, they like punish Clyde Edwards-Helaire and don't use him after that. So
Mm.
it like they're a weird one, but like when you think back to championship football teams over the years, at some point the run game gets going. And like when the
Yes.
Packers offense was at their best this past year, it was when Aaron Jones was on the field clicking on all cylinders and AJ Dillon was coming in to
Oh,
back him up.
yeah.
But then Aaron Jones, I think, got injured, if I
He
remember
did. He was on my
correctly.
fantasy team. He definitely got
He
hurt.
he got hurt and he wasn't the same. And the run game diminished. And then you see what they did in the second half at home playoff game. Offense came out flat. They couldn't run the football. They lost at home. You look back to when the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. Sure, their defense played lights out, bullied the Chiefs, but they could run the football. Leonard Fournette had a good football game.
Playoff Lenny.
Dude, I mean, it's a completely different animal. You
Yeah.
look at the Seahawks over the years. Marshawn Lynch was on his last leg. They bring him in. He goes off for 1,000 yards and saved my fantasy football team as the 10th overall pick. It's one of those things where it's like, and they could have won the Super Bowl had they have not thrown the football.
Yeah, they run the ball. Oh God.
But they didn't run the ball. And you look at like the Lions, the Rams. You look at them. Matthew Stafford, sure. Cooper Kupp, sure. But that team, despite the defense and those two players and some of the other weapons, of course, but Cam Akers came back and provided a spark for that team in the
True.
playoffs. And I get like teams or fans being like, well, we need to go out and just sign so and so. You don't want to draft a guy because he loses his value. It's like taking a car off the lot. The moment you pull him off the lot, it loses value right away because the moment he takes a hit, boom, the value's gone. But then when you look at the running back position, you're willing to pay X amount of dollars, $4.5, $5, $6 million for a running back who loses his value because he's already been off the lot for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and he's taken all these hits. So you're willing to pay that money, but you're not willing to draft knowing that there might be an upgrade with the talent because one, it's fresher legs, it's new talent. The league has no idea what this player can do. They have no idea how to prepare for it. And like you mentioned to your point, nobody's looking at Devin Singletary. No offense to him, but they're not going up on the board and going, well, what's he doing here? What's he doing there? Now, after a while, you know who he is. You know what he does. And the moment he gets that second contract, whether it's with the Bills or not, it doesn't matter because you know who he is. Whereas in this class, you have 10, maybe 12 running backs where you know a little bit about them. Are they all going to pan out? No. But like I mentioned, there's 3 that you could justify in the conversation and go, well, you know what? This guy might be okay.
That's, again, very well said. You're a smart guy. That's why I bring you on. That's why we're tag team champs. That's why we're the Steiners, coming out in one of us in a Michigan jacket. I don't really like Michigan though either, so maybe I should come out in a different jacket. That's a conversation for another time. But it all circles back to that piece
Come on, a Bills jacket, a Bills starter jacket.
There we go. Boom. Knock it down. 90s. We're back. I think it all comes down to, if you're looking at running back in the first round, it's all different based on team, based on individual makeup and need. I don't think you can ever have a hard and fast rule, much like Brandon Beane said after the draft last year, that he's not one of those guys who believes in you don't draft a running back in the first round. I don't think you can operate with those hard and fast rules for any position. You never know how the board is going to shake out. You never know what's going to happen. You never know who the quote unquote best player available is. And on top of that, every team is different. Like if I'm sitting here, if I think someone takes a team, if a team takes a running back in the top 10 this year, right? One, I don't have a running back who's graded that high. But two, if you're in the top 10, you probably have some sort of deficiencies in your roster that need significant fixing, that requires more of a quote unquote premium position. You probably need some offensive line help. You might need a quarterback. You might need an edge rusher. You might need an impact player on defense. But to your point, and to kind of tie it in, if you're on the back end of that first round, right, you have more of a complete team. So you might be able to justify, okay, let's take this new wrinkle in a running back. Let's add him in. Let's put this guy into our team, change things up a bit, add a new thing that defenses have to account for, defenses have to recognize. And also, to build on that point, this is something that I think gets lost in it for a lot of people too. Most guys that get drafted in the first round aren't necessarily, I shouldn't say most, there's a significant portion of first round guys that are drafted who don't necessarily have first round grades for a lot of teams.
Mhm.
I think the average based on scouts and GMs and people who grade, the rough average of first round grades given out per draft are roughly like 15 to 18. So you'll have like around at most, usually like 18, sometimes 20, maybe a little more on a great year, roughly around 18 guys who have a first round grade.
Mhm.
So if you're in the back end of that first round, you're kind of maybe taking a second round grade guy. So that's why you see those positions creep in, or you see more of a, you know what, we could really use this. Let's go after that. Or you know what, we don't really need that, but this guy's the best player on our board. Screw it. Let's take him
Yep.
because you have more of a complete team if you're usually picking towards the back end.
Mhm.
And when you have that, you're afforded those not luxury picks, but you're able to just be like, oh, you know, let's take the best player available because we don't have this glaring need. We don't have this
Right.
glaring hole. And I think that's where the Bills come into play there because, knock on wood, they have a pretty complete team for the most
Right.
part, but there's certain pieces that they don't have. A dynamic running back is one of them. And I think that's where the conversation comes in. And this is a very good comment that I want to bring up. Spin says running backs are not holding the Bills back. That is very true. But having a better running back and a more dynamic running back could take the Bills offense to another level. I'm not advocating for running back in round one. I'm just saying where the conversation comes from. I'm still very much on the corner train. I should have prefaced that with everything. Give me Trent McDuffie. Give me Andrew Booth. Give me Roger McCreary. Give me Kyler Gordon. I am very much corner in round one still. But there's a very big case that you can make of what this offense could look like if you have an elite running back in the backfield or a more dynamic running back. Look at how the Buffalo Bills love to run RPOs. If there's a dynamic guy next to Josh Allen that the defense has to honor and say, uh-oh, do we have to commit that second level defender to the run? Okay, we do because they've got this guy in the backfield. Or it doesn't matter. Even if they give it to that guy, we don't need to worry about it because we need to key in on Josh Allen. Or on that other part, the Bills expected points added per play, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss haven't been good against light boxes. The Bills see a
Yeah.
ton of light boxes. They see a ton of six-man boxes, 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers because of the threat of Josh Allen in the passing game. If you add a running back who can take advantage of light boxes, you now create a situation where the defense has to walk a seventh defender down or potentially more to honor the run. Or you change the math. Maybe defenses can't play as many too high coverages now against the Bills because they have to walk another safety down and they have to play single high looks. And the Bills and Josh Allen feast on those single high looks. That's what it is. Running back isn't holding the Bills back, but adding an upgrade or a more dynamic piece at running back potentially starts to unlock things for the Bills offense that we have not seen in the Josh Allen tenure so far with the Bills. I got to backtrack. We got a super chat donation. Ned, you are one of the most generous people and consistent supporters of us. We love you here and appreciate the hell out of you. Ned says, and it's okay to say you're not high on Singletary. I wouldn't say I'm not high on him. I like him. I think he's replaceable. The question
Mhm.
seems to be, do we spend big draft capital on running back versus other position of need? You guys are persuading me for drafting a running back. I want to say this in pertaining to the Bills. I'm okay if the Bills go running back in round one. If the Bills took Breece Hall or even Kenneth Walker in round one or some other potential player that we may talk about here, I'm okay if they did that. I don't prefer it. There's several other positions that I would take ahead of that. My whole thing with this episode and what Russ and I are speaking to tonight is the reasoning and the methodology behind where this conversation is coming from, what the value is, why
Yeah.
people are saying the Bills should go for this guy or why the Bills should go for a running back. I don't want it personally, but I'm okay if they do, given what it could potentially unlock. I think the return on investment in the first round, given the nature and the makeup of this team, would be better spent elsewhere. In particular, like I've said, corner. And they had a key in that comment again, running back isn't holding the Bills back, but it could potentially unlock a piece for this offense that we haven't seen.
And while it might not be holding them back fully right now, it could potentially hold back the longevity of the
Oh, good
career of
point.
one Josh Allen. The reason I say that is his carries per season, total number of carries, is
Oh,
increasing a lot. And it's not increasing by, that much, but you can't keep taking all of these shots as a quarterback in the NFL when you have one, an additional game on the schedule, but two, you've got to go deep. Like if you want to get to where you want to be as a team, you're going to have to take a deep run into the playoffs. Like that's just what it is. Like you're going to have to win 2, 3, 4 playoff games potentially to get to the Super Bowl. Can his body withstand being sacked 30 plus times a season, 120 plus carries every single year for the next
mm,
5 years? Because in May, he's 26 years old. In one additional game, he had 102 carries last or 2 seasons ago. One extra game, he had 122 carries.
mm.
You can say that's not holding them back, but in one game, you're essentially running the football 20 extra times. I mean, at some point, the body's going to give. And if you
Huh.
want this guy to live out the tenure of his contract and essentially get to 31, 32 years of age, unlike a Cam Newton. And I'm not saying he's Cam Newton. I get it. Cam Newton had a really bad car accident, bad back, all that stuff. But Cam Newton was also running the ball, 150 times a season for multiple seasons.
Those
At
miles add up.
at some point, the miles add up. And if you can get a running back, like I said, to get you to 31, 32 years old of Josh Allen, and you get that running back that can carry the football 200, 250 plus times a season, it saves Josh Allen. And that's something that prevented Matthew Stafford from taking the step to
Oh,
the right
you
direction.
know that
It's
firsthand.
firsthand. The guy, I mean, in his career in Detroit, he had 8 100-yard rushers. The Bills are trending in that exact same direction with Josh Allen. I don't remember what the number was, but it's also very low. So it's one of those things where, yeah, sure, it's not something that saves this team directly today. But again, the longevity of your quarterback is the most important thing offensively, not Stephon Diggs tweets, not a number 2 receiver, not a number 2 corner, which I've been on the train with since 2 years ago in September when I wrote about it for Cover One. But
Yeah.
it's the fact that this team needs a running back. They're going to draft a running back, regardless of the 1-year contract that they gave Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson, regardless of what the money is, they might let Duke Johnson go.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. They might let Matt Breida go. Just because you have Breida, Johnson, Singletary, Moss, this isn't Madden, folks. This isn't Madden. You're not gonna be able to run, 12 plays with this guy, 15 with this guy, and be this awesome team on all Madden. It's not gonna happen. It's not happening now. If you think Duke Johnson's going to be the reason why I don't draft Kenneth Walker, you are out of your effing mind. You are out of your mind.
That's very funny. Some of the people in the chat are starting to echo those sentiments. Really good comment here from Chewy, saying running back saves Josh Allen from getting smashed every time he bolts on 3rd and 3. Very good point. Comment here from Mark, echoing what I said earlier. Mark says, I would like somebody who forces the opposing teams to drop one of the high safeties. Again, that's what you have to look at it as, right? I think everyone's like thinks helping Josh Allen, and again, they think receiver or they think offensive line, which is fair, or tight end. Running back, a good running back, and again, this isn't me saying this is why the Bills should take a running back in round 1, but a good running back doesn't just help in the running game. Like it doesn't just help because people say, oh, well, we don't really run the ball, so we don't need a running back. But the threat of a run causes defenses to adjust accordingly. They have to bring another defender in the box. Maybe they bring one of those safeties down. Maybe they have to play more single high. Maybe they play less zone. Maybe they spend another couple hours a week having to game plan for the run, and that's a couple hours every week that isn't used game planning towards Josh Allen. Maybe you have a running back who understands how to release when his man doesn't blitz, and he can run these quarterback-friendly routes when Josh Allen escapes the pocket and things break down and Josh Allen has some more dump off ability. Or you've got a guy who he hits a check down to and he's got 8 yards of space. And instead of it being an 8-yard gain, you've checked it down to a dynamic athlete who can turn it into a 10 or 12 or 15-yard gain or potentially take it to the house. There's all these, oh yeah, Breida's gone. There's all these potential unlocking opportunities when you add a running back. It's not just about the run game, it's the potential benefit that it gives to Josh Allen and to this offense.
I don't
And
care that Matt Breida is on the Giants. You want to know why? Because they didn't play him anyway, so it doesn't matter.
bringing the heat tonight. You're definitely the Rick Steiner of the Steiners.
I just
Or you
like
might be Scott. You got a lot of attitude. Ooh, I like it.
I'm big. I'm big Papa Pump, baby. Let's
That's
go.
fine. I'll be the dog face gremlin. I'll be the dog face gremlin. We got a super chat. I got a timeout. I got to walk it back. We got a super
Tio,
chat
take a Tio.
from Y Towns King. Appreciate you for the super chat and for being here live. Thank you very much. Also, to everybody here live, if you're here, we got a decent amount here rocking live. Continue with the engagement. We'd love to hear your questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, all of it. But please drop a like. That's fantastic. Help us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Y Towns King says, are y'all looking for improvement from Singletary or game-breaking ability from the running back position? Because one could see major improvement behind the new O-line. I'll say two things with that. One, I don't necessarily need improvement from Devin Singletary, but I need a complementary piece to Devin Singletary. And I'm okay with a complementary piece being in one of several areas. Give me a guy who's a receiving threat coming out of the backfield, like give me a James White, or give me someone who's got home run speed ability, or give me a power back like an AJ Dillon, even though he's got some speed. Give me some sort of traitsy back, because Devin Singletary is this like amalgamation of a bunch of above average things, but there's not one holistic thing that he's great at. He's not a burner. He's not a power back. His best trait is his shiftiness and his elusiveness in the hole, but he's not like a 99 in that, if we're, to tie it back into some Madden stuff. He's above average at a lot of things, but he doesn't have this holistic plus matchup that he has. So I'm okay with just the complementary piece. That's why, like, a lot of my favorite running backs in this draft, kind of preview a little bit. I love the idea of pairing Devin Singletary with a James Cook or a Rashad White, or my personal favorite, Brian Robinson Jr. from Alabama, like, who has more speed than people think at 6'2", 225 pounds, and he runs a 4.5, a 4.53, a low 4.5.
Very surgical with his cuts.
Very surgical. And he can pass protect like a mother. Like, dude is sick. Like, so my favorite thing for this draft coming into it has been, give me a complimentary running back in rounds 3 through 5, or if you want to splurge a little, I'll go with Kenneth Walker in round 2, because I think he's fantastic as we start to transition and talk about that a little here. But I think improvement to me implies you're getting one guy who can do everything, and then you're investing heavily, and you're probably taking somebody in round 1. I don't think Devin Singletary is the future of the backfield with the Bills, and I think you need a complementary piece to him now, given the makeup of this offense and given the makeup of what they do. Oh, did you click something? Did I double click?
I remember the first time I checked the box score too.
Breece Hall runs a 4.39 and rush.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, the guy who ran. Oh, but people don't want him. Rather, they have the guy who ran for 5 touchdowns in some conference.
Iowa State doesn't play on Tuesdays. They've never played on a Tuesday ever.
Oh,
never, Kenneth.
No, I think he's saying that in reference to Kenneth Walker. I like Kenneth Walker. Is that a knock or Haskins? I don't know who the knock is against here. Kenneth Walker ran for 5 touchdowns against Michigan. Haskins also ran for 5 touchdowns against Ohio State. Maybe Walker didn't run 5.
I don't know, but I would most certainly take Big Ten football over the Big 12 any day of the week. Just saying. But
they don't play defense in the Big 12.
They don't do anything in the Big 12. Quarterbacks can't even quarterback. But anyways,
quarterbacks can't even quarterback.
Yeah, well, we got another super chat, but I know we're about to get into the Breece Hall thing, so I just wanted to pull that up because I know we're probably going to get going on that. But you got another super chat, brother.
I do got another super chat. Silas is we double click. Appreciate you. Silas is a consistent contributor here and viewer of the show, so appreciate you, Silas, and welcome to another episode. Thank you very much, and thank you for the donation. Silas says we're a pass heavy offense. Motor ran for nearly 900 yards with a bad O-line and splitting reps early with Moss. Exactly what are you expecting to get extra from the running back spot in this offense? I'll tell you. So you're right. Motor ran for 870 yards. Also, fun fact, Josh Allen ran for 763, which is a lot. Roughly almost 300 of that was on quarterback design runs. So a decent amount on that was scrambles and little things like that. What I'm expecting from the running back spot in this offense is not raw stats ability. Or box scores like stats. Like the total rushing yards is nice. What I want from the running back in this offense, some of the things I mentioned earlier, someone who takes advantage of light boxes. Devin Singletary, I think, is 35th in terms of expected points added per attempt versus light boxes, which is not great. I want somebody who takes advantage of those light boxes. I also want someone who functions better in the pass game because, to your point, Silas, we are a pass heavy offense. So, because we're a pass heavy offense, teams know that. So, they do two things. One, they give you light boxes because they want to stop the pass. So I want a running back who can take advantage of those light boxes. Two, I want a running back who can function better in that pass heavy offense. I want a running back who I can split out wide and he's not just a decoy or he's not being motioned out to identify the coverage. I want a guy who can be motioned out because he can run a slant and go, or he can run a drag across the middle, or he can run a jerk route and pop outside on 3rd and 4 and get you those 4 yards and know where the sticks are. I want a guy who can run an angle route out of the backfield. I want the running back who can come out of the backfield and he's got the linebacker on him and he gets to make a choice and it's stutter, stutter, stutter. Do I have space on the outside? Do I have space on the inside? Oh, I have space on the inside. Stutter, stutter, stutter. Pop inside and I'm open across the middle for an easy completion. I want somebody who, when he gets a check down and has 8 yards of space, he can get you 12 to 15 because of his burst and his ability to transition from runner to receiver. Devin Singletary can get the job done, but a better level of back and one who is suited for more of a pass-heavy offense unlocks different things. That's what I'm expecting to get extra from the running back spot. Russ, you're laughing. I need to know why you're laughing.
I love your analysis, but this chat is just driving me nuts with this. Get a better offensive line. I don't know a team that's invested more into their offensive line over the last 3 years, 4 years for one quarterback than the Buffalo Bills. I mean, from drafting Cody Ford, signing Mitch Morse, to bringing back Ryan Bates, despite the Bears wanting to bring him back. You already have Deion Dawkins. You brought in John Feliciano. I mean,
that didn't work out.
I mean, it doesn't, but either way, you've done so many different things. And I get it. There's bad pieces to the puzzle. Not everybody's going to play up to par, but like you're going to reshuffle the line here and there. Things are going to happen. Injuries are going to occur. You went out and got Spencer Brown, Tommy Doyle back to back. There's so many different things in this last 3-4 years that you've done for your offensive line. It's not just your offensive line. Like, it's not just that. Like, you can't have 5 all pros up front, but you have a serviceable offensive line. It's not like it's that bad. At some point, your running back has to hit the holes. Your running back has to do certain things, but also your play calling. You can't go a game where you go all the way through almost the second quarter before you actually hand it off to a running back, which is what the Bills did earlier in the year. I don't remember the game. I would have to pull it up. I'm not going to waste my time doing it because that doesn't matter because we're talking draft. But the fact is that you win an entire quarter and you didn't even give it to your running back and you had 3 or 4 possessions. It was pass, 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 design quarterback run, pass, pass, pass. That's not a recipe for success. It doesn't matter who you have up front blocking. And again, your personnel at running back can get better. So it is.
And people, I think also with it, the symbiotic relationship between offensive line and running back is very much like the symbiotic relationship between coverage and pass rush. If your pass rush is awesome, but your coverage is terrible, it almost negates the good pass rush and vice versa. Amazing coverage doesn't really matter if you don't have pass rush. It's the same thing with an offensive line and running back. If you've got a great offensive line, but you don't have the running back who can execute, you're almost wasting a good offensive line. Same thing with you if you have this ultra talented running back, but you can't put an offensive line in front of them. You have to be able to have the mixture and the combination of both. And the Bills' offensive line, they have invested to a decent degree with it. The Bills' offensive line right now, I think, will be better because of the presence of Aaron Cromer, but they still very much have a middling offensive line. I really like Deion Dawkins. I think Mitch Morse is very underrated. We got to see what Spencer Brown does. I like what Saffold adds. We got to see, if Bates can play at that level at larger sample size, so on and so forth. The Bills don't have a top 10 offensive line. They don't have a bottom 10 offensive line. They have a middling offensive line, which is fine. All you want the Bills' offensive line to do is not be terrible, not give up pressure to Josh Allen and execute as best as you can. Allow the playmakers to elevate their play. That's also part of what having a good running back is, right? Because a good running back can take a middling offensive line and elevate that offensive line the same way a really good offensive line can elevate a middling running back. It goes both ways in that relationship. And this is a really great comment from Michael, Slack channel member, person who I've met in real life and who was fantastic and who's always supportive of myself and this entire team. I love what he says here. This is so spot on. Michael says, the draft is more gray than some people make it seem, especially late in the first. The value of the rookie deal versus the second if the player is worth it.
Facts.
Reaching too far at a premium position is worse than a running back in the first. That's also part of it too, the value of it, right? Taking a corner just to take a corner. What happens? I doubt it. But what happens if in the first 24 picks, there's 7 receivers and 6 corners? Do you still take a corner because you need a corner? What happens if a bunch of the other ones are offensive guard, and then you're like, well, okay, where do we go now?
You can't keep going back to the well when the well dries up. Like,
there you go.
You gotta find an alternative. You gotta find a different way to get water, and that's just what it is. And the Bill, I mean, look, the Bills can take a corner. I'm happy with it. Second round, they might be able to get an Isaiah Spiller, a Kenneth Walker if he's there, a Breece Hall. I'll be honest, I don't think Walker or Hall are going to be there. So the chat that keeps going, yeah, we'll get one of those guys at whatever that second round pick is. I don't remember the number, 56, 58,
57. You were so close. You guessed both around.
God, that sucks.
Oh, also, I wanted to clarify. Kenneth was in favor of the Breece Hall comment. He was meaning the guys who play on Tuesdays. He was talking about the guys like Pierre Strong and the other guys that play at small schools against guys who will never play in the NFL. So we misunderstood. Fair. That's fair. Well, thank you very much for commenting again, Kenneth. I was confused. I didn't know what was going on.
Dude, I think you've had 2 super chats that we haven't touched yet.
We got Silas's. I want to bring up this comment from Pops
I think
Mafia.
Silas brought another one.
He brought another one. Pops Mafia says, I want someone who can pick up the blitz. And Ron Beck says, you want our running back to get respect from the defense. I think that's a great, great comment. Hold on. Keep going. Wow, there's a lot of comments. Goodness. Oh, do have another super chat from Silas. Well done, Russ. And thank you again, Silas. You are fantastic. Silas says, Motor has been solid and productive. He's also cheap. I get the cap is going to go up, but we can't pay everyone. Draft a compliment to him makes sense. They spent on the O-line, and most of those moves suck. Some of them have been hit or miss. I really like the Roger Saffold deal. I think also going back to some of the moves that were made initially, like I thought the Ty and Secchi move stabilized things a little bit. Quentin Spain went downhill, but he helped a little bit in that initial year. So did John Feliciano, actually. Mitch Morse did. Granted, you could also play devil's advocate. The Bills' offensive line was so bad before that there was nowhere to go but up. But here's the thing also with that, Silas, so Motor's been solid and productive, and you say that he's also cheap. He's also in the last year of his deal. He's a free agent in 2023. And I'm genuinely asking you, Silas, and anybody else in the chat, are you giving Devin Singletary a second contract? Because if you give him a second contract, he's not going to be the cheap level. You know who's going to be cheap? A running back that you take in the second round or the third round, or a running back in the first round who may be a little more expensive, but the production and the skill set is greater than what you're getting from Singletary, even with the small difference in money, because again, you're going to have to pay Devin Singletary to stay around. His rookie deal is done after 2022. So if you want him to stay around, you don't have to back up the Brinks truck and pay him like a top 20 guy, but you do have to pay him to a level to get him to stay.
Well, and also, I'm not going to go off this comment or anything like that off of Silas. Great point on all that. But I will also say to the chat that keeps saying, I know, I like how he's saying boo Russ, which I get, but also he says, screw running the football, the guy that wanted Najee Harris last year, but whatever. I digress.
He's just being contrary to be scared.
I know he is. I know him and his little bald head. Am I blue enough for you today? Should I get a little bluer for you, Aaron?
There's a lot going on here. There's a lot. Yeah, even Ron said, stir that pot, Aaron.
But no, so the chat's saying, the running backs are fine. We just got to upgrade the offensive line. Like I said, the last several years, they've done a lot to try to upgrade the offensive line. And at some point, you can sit there and say, yeah, it's bad. But as they continue to upgrade the offensive line, if the results are the exact same from the running backs, regardless of the opportunities, at some point, you have to make that decision and go, we got to get better in this position. And I'm not saying the Bills are going to do it in the first round. I don't necessarily agree. I don't agree taking Breece Hall in the first round. I can tell you that. And I know we're going to talk about these guys, but again, there's guys that I would consider if I were them, if I was sitting in that room, knowing where my team is, then I would consider it. But again, we don't know what the board's going to look like at the time that they're on the clock in the first round. We just have no idea.
That's a very fair point. I wanted to get to, I'm going to grab that super chat in a minute. I wanted to get to Silas's comment. He says, the majority of the moves made on the O-line were god awful. As soon as Bates started and the line got good, Motor put up good numbers. Look at his career numbers, for God's sakes. I did. I went down the rabbit hole with Singletary snaps doubling the last 5 weeks of the year, the commitment to the run in terms of attempts. But what's funny is even the change in, so weeks 1 through 14, the Bills were passing at a 61% pass rate, 39% run rate. Weeks 15 and on, they were running it at a 46% run rate, so 7% more per game. They only averaged 0.1 yards per attempt more the back end of the year. It wasn't a success per run. It was a success per volume and per commitment. You were getting more yards out of Devin Singletary, not because he was doing better on individual runs, just because of the volume, which is still working. But you also have to look at that and the success per attempt versus overall volume. You also have to look at the quality of competition the Bills were playing once Bates went in. No disrespect to the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets defensive groupings, but the Bills weren't playing world beaters up front, which is something we talked about going into the playoffs, because the Bills offensive line was building continuity and they were seeing success versus the pass rush and in the run game, but they also weren't playing high levels of competition. I dove deep big time into the numbers, and I like Bates coming back. And again, Singletary is adequate. I don't think you look at the raw numbers and the conclusion you draw is that the line is going to be good this year and Singletary can take them to the next level. And that's also part of it too, right? Like, look what Singletary did with the offensive line that started to get stabilized. Imagine what a better running back does with that stable offensive line. And again, that's a big part. So 7% more run rate, weeks 15 plus through the rest of the year when Ryan Bates started to become a factor. Weeks 1 through 14, when they were at a 39% run rate, 4.8 yards per attempt. Weeks 15 and on, with a 46% run rate, 4.9. So 0.1 yards more per attempt. And also, if anybody wants a successful run rate stat, weeks 1 through 14, 52% successful run rate. Weeks 15 plus, 55%. It's only a 3% difference in successful run rate. It's the difference per attempt. Don't look at just raw volume. I think that's a large part of it too. Oh, this is also a good comment. I brought it up when you were talking. I'm going to leave this up while I go to the super chat. Chewy says, how many runs did Motor have where if he was a tad faster, he would have broke it? That's a big one too. All the bad offensive line playing earlier in the year. If you just have a running back who's a hair quicker, Singletary, I believe, runs a 4.66 40. He's faster in like the 10-yard and 20-yard splits. But imagine if you have a running back with a bit more burst, those offensive linemen, instead of having to hold their block for 2 seconds, they only need to hold it for a second and a half. And then when they do hold them for 2 seconds, you get maybe bigger gains because you have a running back who can take advantage of what is being given to him. Here we go. Ned's super chat. Ned, you are killing it. And Ned and Silas, both of you guys are like dueling super chats, and it's fantastic. I appreciate the hell out of you guys. Ned says oh boy, Russ, this is a good one. Ned says, in this draft, on a scale of 1 to 10, would a first round running back be compared to Singletary overall? And would the running back really be the scheme changer compared to a Singletary? Okay, I'm trying to figure out the scale piece. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, would a first round running back be compared to Singletary? I don't know what you're getting at. So tell us in the comments, unless Rush, you get it. Otherwise,
I think he means, is there basically a running back that, I'm assuming just off some of the mock drafts we've seen different running backs go in the first round. I'm thinking it's one of those guys. Are they comparable to Devin Singletary? And then overall, which I would say no, I would think the three that I have in mind would be Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller, and Breece Hall. Again, me personally, I wouldn't. The only one I would even consider taking in the first round is Kenneth Walker. If it was me, and that's not me playing bias. I think the lateral movements from him, his hip fluidity and the way that he is able to essentially go like from here and then just bend like this and able to cut, and the way he moves, and then just the overall contact balance from him, it's something that I think separates him from a lot of the backs in this class. And then would the running back really be the scheme changer compared to a Singletary? Again, the guy that I'm just trying to answer the question, because again, I don't think there's a guy that necessarily is comparable to Singletary in the first round. But again, the guy that I would take, if it was me, I'd be taking Kenneth Walker. I really do. I think he, from a zone running perspective, he makes so
Mm,
much sense. He understands when to cut it. He understands when to bang. He just understands all of that stuff. And again, when you bring in what he can do laterally with his lower body, and then just the contact balance with all of it, I I mean, and how can you not look past just the overall production from 2 years ago to now? This guy's, I think, only getting better. I think his
mm,
best football is in front of him, and he didn't have. You want to talk about bad offensive line play? He didn't have a good offensive line at Michigan State. Those guys are bad. There
poorly.
is not. Yeah, there's not a draftable offensive lineman at Michigan State right now, and it's one of those things where he goes to this team. He's got a middle of the road offensive line enough to get the job done. I think it makes you that much better, and you've got some complementary pieces there in Moss and
Yes.
Singletary.
And he's got a quarterback and passing attack that's going to give you light boxes and that he can
Ex-
feast on. And, I think that was a solid way to answer that, Russ. And I'm going to answer like the second part too. Like, and would the running back really be the scheme changer compared to a Singletary? I think with the skill sets that are available in the first and second round for running back, yes, I think it would be a scheme changer because of a skill set capability. You can grab somebody, whether it's Breece Hall, whether it's Kenneth Walker, whether it's Isaiah Spiller, those guys all have an elite trait,
mm-hmm.
whether it's burst, whether it's home run ability, whether it's vision, whether it's contact balance, whether it's a receiving threat out of the backfield. I mean, even I'm going to get into the numbers in a minute for some guys, but I think it would be, yes, because you have a dynamic added to the running back room and to the offense that is a scheme changer because you have a plus matchup. You have an elite trait in one of these guys. Singletary doesn't have an elite trait. He's got a bunch of above average ones, but several of these running backs in this draft have an elite trait or multiple elite traits, and then a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of above average traits. And wanted to pull up some comments from the Cover One account. I'm guessing it's Eric, or maybe even Greg,
Has to be.
saying a late, I should be Eric based on the second comment. So Eric says a late first round pick will make what Motor is going to command at least. Yep, with Motor on that second contract, like we were talking earlier. And then, yeah, Eric's drilling home. We talked about this last night in the Cover One film room. Yeah, Eric saying the numbers late last year were about the same yards per attempt wise. They just ran more. So when people say the Bills were better at running the ball at the end of the year, it may look that way, or especially if you look at the box score, you see like, oh my God, they were running for so many more yards, but the yards per attempt were the same. They were just running
Mm-hmm.
it more. It was more of a commitment to the run and a philosophy change and a volume perspective. You were getting more quantity. You weren't necessarily getting more quality when it came to the run game. And so what do you do in order to get more quality? Add a better running back or add a better offensive lineman here or there, mix it up, change it up. I go in this situation, we're talking about running back. You upgrade that running back to help in the running game, but also for all the other dynamic reasons that we talked about. And man, I didn't think it would be this contentious. And I knew this was like a polarizing topic, but I didn't know how polarizing. I'm going to switch the banner because we've talked about running back value. And honestly, I feel like we could probably talk about it for another like 2-3 hours, but now we're going to go into some more of the prospect talk. And, Russ, you started to talk about him. So Breece Hall, the running back who kind of sparked all of this because several people have linked him to the Bills in the first round of several mock drafts. And here we are for the second year in a row, the Bills being linked to a running back in the first round. Last year it was Travis Etienne, maybe even Najee Harris. This year it's now Breece Hall. Some people thinking Kenneth Walker, but a lot of it is the Breece Hall talk. He's on the graphic for this episode because of that reason. Eric Turner, our boy, he has him as his RB1. What are your thoughts on Mr. Breece Hall? Where do you got him? What do you like about him? What are your thoughts?
I'm not surprised that Eric's got him as RB1. I will say Silas gave you another super chat as well.
Tell him we got to time out then. We got to time out. Everybody knows the rules.
Sorry.
He says, no, I appreciate you interrupting yourself. Thank you, Silas. Again, you are killing it. We appreciate you. Silas is totally irrelevant to the show, but the vet we need at corner is Stephon Gilmore. I don't know if the money is there, but he's who I want my DBs to mirror. You know what? Some people are still salty because of his primetime comment that he made when he went to New England. I would be okay with a Stephon Gilmore reunion. I'm still banging the drum for my boy Bryce Callahan, who isn't just a slot corner. He can play on the outside. I broke down film on him. I went in depth with him. Lowest quarterback rating allowed in 2020 when he was on the outside. Like 11th lowest reception percentage at 53.8. He also gives you depth at nickel behind Taron Johnson. He's had injury concerns, which knock his price down. You allow him
Right.
to platoon with a rookie. Bryce Callahan is still my guy. I would be fine with Stephon Gilmore, but also in that vein, in a perfect world, as I kick it back to you, Russ, for Breece Hall, in a perfect world, the Bills do bring in a vet, and then they also draft a corner early, and they platoon that young guy with the vet. They need more depth in that position grouping as a whole, and they need more versatility as a whole. I'm completely fine with a vet, and if they want to bring back Gilmore, I still think he's got some juice left in the tank. Very fair to your comment there, Silas. Russ, back to you, Mr. Breece Hall. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all by Eric, probably falling in love with him the more he watched him. I mean, just some of his cuts and some of his big time runs that he had definitely screams Eric Turner all day long, just knowing him, breaking down film with him for so long now.
Dude, the
I,
more
I,
he watched, the more excited he got.
I
He started
and
like,
well, and I get it because, he's one of those guys. He had 41 rushing touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. So it's like the more you watch, the more touchdowns and production you see. And then you do see some really impressive cuts from him. And you see, the overall size and speed for the position. It's great for the NFL. I think he does have the desired skill set to be utilized on all 3 downs. He does show very good burst in the open field. I do think, though, from a decision-making standpoint, he can definitely improve there. I think he at times cuts in the wrong direction or just makes an unnecessary cut for no reason. Like there's times where, you'll watch him run and like he's got an opening, and rather than hitting the opening and just getting up the sideline, running up the sidewalk, he goes and he cuts into the garbage. And I thought there were times where like, the hips looked tight when he would do that. And I think it was more so him hesitating or second guessing what he potentially could have done on that particular decision. Again, I like his skill set. I think in the red zone, he could really be an asset. And that might be a perk for the Buffalo Bills, which is why maybe it's been a hot topic for him in the first round. Because again, with how he tested at the combine, he probably shot up draft boards because that was probably the rumor out of the combine and things like that. But also, teams I saw a chat earlier. Somebody said, Taylor was picked 41, DeAndre Swift was 35. So like that's the range for Kenneth Walker. Probably the same thing on Breece Hall, regardless of what your grade is on him. He's probably going to be gone by the time they're on the board somewhere in the 50s at 57. So I think it's going to be one of those things where, again, Hall, he fits what you're looking for in the red zone. He can probably play all 3 downs in the NFL. Former basketball player. You love those guys that are, dual sport athletes. He had 11 points per game, 5.8 rebounds per game, and 4.3 assists per game as a junior in high school. His cousin was Roger Craig, who was the 1988 NFL Offensive Player of the Year. His stepfather, Jeff, played running back at Nebraska. So he comes from a long list of history, players, and production in the NFL and things like that. But aside from that, I see Miles Sanders when I watch him run. I'm not sold on Miles Sanders in the NFL. Again, I could be wrong. I see Miles Sanders. I'm not a pro comparison guy, but that was the first player that popped up the more I watched of him. So I could be wrong. I do like some of the lateral movement from him. I like the cuts. I like the burst, but overall, he's not my RB1, but I can respect it if he was. You might be muted.
I definitely am. Well done. I can't believe I muted myself. I coughed earlier, and so I muted myself and then did not go back. I got lost in the chat because it's jumping. Also, again, with everybody jumping, the engagement's awesome. The chat is awesome. Throw some likes up there for this video. Just, why not? Because it's all in good fun, and you guys help us out. We appreciate you. I like Breece Hall for his receiving ability. Career 82 catches, 743 yards. I like how well he functions in zone running in his career, 528 zone runs, 183 gap. I like his dynamic ability coming out of the backfield in the run game, but also in the pass game. I have a second round grade on him. But again, when we're talking about late in the first round, I think that's okay. Like you can take guys who you have a second round grade on if you have the need there, or if he's like the best player available on your board. What I think Breece, this is a good comment from Ned.
Yeah.
And this is why I like Breece. So Ned says, so there really isn't a scheme changer in round one. What I think is interesting with Breece from like the scheme changer, depending on how you mean it, what I think Breece Hall adds is somebody with breakaway speed and elusiveness, but again, that dynamic piece where he can run and he can also receive. So in the ideal world that I initially thought of coming into the draft, again, I'm just making it up, but you take Devin Singletary and then you draft like James Cook, right? So you've got Singletary, and then you've also got the running back who can line up in different spots, who can run routes, who can catch the ball, who's got burst, who's got speed. Breece Hall is kind of all of that in one. So that's where the scheme changer piece comes in, because if James Cook comes on the field, you can kind of be like, if you're the defense, okay, Cook is in, odds are they're probably passing it, right? If you've got Breece Hall back there, no matter where he's lining up, you don't really have a tendency that you're cluing in on or keying in on, because, he could run the ball. He could run a route. It could be a play action pass and a check down. It might be RPO. It might be zone read. It might be a draw. It might be an actual run. Like, what are we doing? That's where the scheme changer piece comes in, because of his versatility. I think that's why a lot of people have him as RB1, because he has, I guess, the most total package piecing together there. Like, he's better from a tape perspective than Kenneth Walker in the receiving
Are you
game.
wearing an Austin 316 shirt?
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. I saw the Austin. I was like, wait a second here. Yeah. This can't just go untalked about.
I try to put on a wrestling shirt every time we do a show together. Yeah.
Okay. We'll start that trend. I only have like 3, but that's fine. Go ahead.
As you were. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Do your thing. I appreciate you. I appreciate you calling it out, man. Thank you so much. Commenting on my swag. I think that's why a lot of people have Breece Hall in that conversation, or why him being mocked to the Bills in round 1 is the sexier pick of all the other running backs, because he is more of that complete package in terms of running threat and receiving threat, because of everything that he can do. Yeah, Pops Mafia said in the comment, Austin 316 to WrestleMania. He is fighting Kevin Owens. I'm probably not watching Mania. I'm really down on WWE. It's terrible. That's a conversation for another time. But Breece Hall is kind of, we get it. We're the same. Steiners, man. Breece Hall is more of that complete package. So I think that's where the scheme changer piece comes in, because of what they add. For me, Russ, like you mentioned, one of the things I'm concerned about, the contact balance is definitely something for me. It's weird. It's almost like, and this isn't right, this is just what I'm like, I get the feeling of, it's almost like he's got like weak ankles. Like he just goes down. But then like the next play, he'll go from being tackled, like he'll get like smacked
in spinning and like doing weird stuff. It doesn't make any sense.
But it's so, literally in the game against Texas, he goes down, he gets tackled in the hole on like some flimsy kick in the ankle and falls down. And then the next play, defensive tackle comes screaming in. He jukes him, gets into the hole, jukes the next guy. Safety comes up. He spins away from him. Linebacker comes in first of all, he does that spin as the corner is trying to wrench the ball away from him. He spins with it, jukes the safety, then jump cuts the linebacker cutting in, and then he takes it horizontal and gets up the sideline for another 15 yards. Like, that's why I'm okay living with the contact balance issues, because he pulls off some runs that are just like, he's that type of running back that, and I said it last night on the pod, I also feel this way about Kenneth Walker. He's that guy who, when you're wrong on offense, he can make you right. And against the defense, when the defense is right, he can make the defense wrong. He's got those plays where if Mitch Morse gets blown up or Dawkins gets blown up, he can negate that. He can still make a play. He can get you 4 or 5 when he should get you -2. And that's what I like about Breece Hall. I do have questions about the contact balance, but his playmaking, his game-breaking ability, and more importantly, again, it's that dynamic. He can run routes out of the backfield. He's got really good hands. He's got good size. He can function in the screen game, the check down game. He's shown that ability in the pass game where ball snapped, he's scanning for protection. Nobody comes. He releases out. Quarterback has to scramble. He runs that scramble drill real well. He makes himself QB friendly. And then he gets the ball 3 yards from the line of scrimmage. He can turn it into a 20-yard game in the blink of an eye.
Right. Well,
that's what I like from him.
Yeah, and that's why I like respectfully disagree on the Breece Hall stuff and just want to go with Kenneth Walker, because he's just as fast. A 4.38 40 is not like something that you just accidentally do.
I love Kenneth Walker.
It shows up on tape constantly of him being able to outrun defenders in the short areas of the field, in the long areas of the field. I mean, just going from, one end of the field. I mean, if I remember correctly, his first 3 carries to start a Michigan State football game went 75 yards for a touchdown. That doesn't happen by mistake. That's you understanding where you need to be.
He's your RB1, correct?
That's correct.
Perfect.
And
I just want to be able to switch the banner and move into this topic of who's your RB1 and why. Continue. I'm sorry.
yeah, and again, like sure, out of any prospect in this class, I've watched more tape of him than anybody else because I've watched every single game on a Saturday afternoon, recorded the game, went back and rewatched it on my Sunday mornings while setting up my fantasy lineups because I'm a maniac.
Yes, you are.
And it's just it's what I don't know, but he's like that guy that like I've watched him enough times now where I watch him and I say, okay, I can see shades of his game as, you know, Kareem Hunt. I can see that type of player with him with contact balance, open field burst, the things that you're talking about with Breece Hall. You have those concerns. I don't have those concerns with Kenneth Walker.
Correct.
And it's just one of those things where like I'm fine with taking him in the back end of the first round because I think the Bills team is, you know, like this close from getting to the next level. And it's like, is it maybe a CB2 away or is it truly an RB1 away from getting this offense to completely gel and score 40 points a game and be unstoppable? I have no idea what the exact answer is. We'll obviously know in a month. But to me, the running back position, if I'm picking that guy, it's Kenneth Walker. And I'm doing it at 25 because I know at 57, I know he's not going to be there at 57. I just know it.
Here's a good question from Kendall. This is directly to you, Russ, and then I'm going to speak on my running back one and Kendall Walker a bit. So Kendall wants to know if we can hear your take on Walker's pass pro and his pass catching projection at the next level, because he didn't see a ton of it, not a ton of pass protection snaps in college, and then career 18 catches for 129 yards in college, not used a lot in that pass world. So what are your thoughts on his pass protection and pass catching abilities at the next level?
Yeah, I'm not so much worried about it because when you think back a few years ago, the player that first comes to mind is Jonathan Taylor, right? He didn't catch a ton of passes out of Wisconsin. Just because a player doesn't do it and they're not maybe asked to do it, it doesn't mean that they can't do it. It means that
Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Continue. I just love that
exactly.
phrase.
And I think from a pass perspective, he does a good enough job. He's going to do an adequate enough job to get the, you know, to keep Josh Allen upright long enough if there was that blitz. Now,
He's not a liability.
No, he's not a liability. Now, sure, he's not Kyron Williams. He's not laying guys out with a, you know, a Batista bomb or a spine buster or something like that.
Nice.
But he is somebody that, again, he sticks his head into the chest of the defender. He stays square. There is times, you know, there's that forward lunge, that lean, things like that. But that's common with the position. It happens from time to time. Again, they're running backs. They're skill positions. They're not asked to block all the time. Maybe the reason why Kyron Williams was asked to block was because rather than going to run with the team because he ran a 4.7 40, he was blocking with the offensive line. I have no idea. But that being said, there were times on film where he was making, you know, 3 or 4 catches here or there in a game, and it looked fine. It looked like it gelled. Everything was good. And he's just one of those guys. Again, I think from where he was, you know, 2 years ago at Wake Forest and in his career with, you know, 1,100 rushing yards there, becoming a Heisman Trophy candidate, the football is there for him to get better as a pro. And I think in the Bills offense, that's to me a slam dunk. And if it's not the Bills, you better hope it's not the Chiefs a few picks later.
Ooh, way to throw that. You know how to twist the knife there, throwing in that Chiefs reference. There's, to continue the talk
Like
on
Jon
Walker.
Snow, she put a knife in my heart.
Oh, look at you. Look at you. I like the little I like the English accent there. Nice.
That was really bad.
It wasn't great, but I appreciate your effort. You can for effort.
I was too busy laughing.
For me, I'm torn on, I go back and forth on RB1. And because I like the dynamic ability that Breece brings. Walker was my RB1 during the year. I still have him as my RB1 now. I just love what he brings from a contact balance perspective, from a power perspective, from a burst perspective, from, I think Breece can function in gap runs as well, but I've seen Walker do it more successfully on tape, like watching him just get the ball. Granted, it's been out of the pistol, but he gets that ball and he sees the hole and bang, it's done. Or he presses the line in a zone run and he gets through, bang, he's gone. That, I think back to that Michigan game, and you'll love this. Michigan, really good defense. Aiden Hutchinson, stud. David Ojabo, stud. Dax Hill, good football player, in addition to everything else on that defense. He's out there in the fourth quarter busting 55-yard touchdown runs with his team down 8 after he's been carrying the load for the whole game. Then he
And
ties
the
it
whole
with that.
season.
Boom. And the whole season. Good point, because that's late in the year. He busts off that like 55-yard touchdown run when it's 22-30 or whatever. Then they're down later. He busts off a 20. Oh, I got goosebumps thinking about it. He busts off like that 20-yard touchdown to put him up at the end. Like he got shot out of a cannon. He does not look like a dude who's already seen 20 plus carries against arguably the best defense in college football against a ton of defensive stud prospects at the next level. His burst, his long speed, his contact balance, his vision, here's some fun stats that I like to bring up. 1,168 yards after contact, which led all of college football. 89, I think so. 89 missed tackles forced, which was second amongst everyone in college football. You know who was first in missed tackles forced? It's not a running back.
It's a quarterback.
Yep.
Link
to you guys. It's Malik Willis.
Oh, really?
90. He had one more. 90 missed tackles forced, which is unreal for a quarterback. Cool for Malik.
Wow.
And then Kenneth Walker, he was tied for second in runs of 10 or more yards. Burst, long speed. Oh, and that's also a point from Kendall, too. I think, Walker was hurt at different points, and he had some injuries that even in that, is it the Maryland game? The Maryland game, I believe, he hurts his ankle. He comes back and he has a wrap on it, and then he ditches the wrap because he didn't like it. Like, he was playing banged up at different points in the year. I just can't get off of Kenneth Walker. Like, his speed, his burst, his physicality, his vision, his timing, his intelligence, his awareness. I love how he doesn't put himself in danger, but he doesn't go out of bounds easy. Kendall mentioned it last night in the film room, how like he says that when he went to Michigan State, like he was coached that they said, like, you don't go out of bounds. Like, you do what you can to like get more yards, and you fight, and you see it. Like, he does that. And then I've seen, for me in the pass game, to your point, Russ, I've seen some things from him in the pass game. It started to click for me at the combine. And then especially when I went back and looked at it on tape, he runs some route. He looks natural, running routes in the flats, catching the ball, get upfield. He looked a lot better than 18 catches for 129 yards. And I think that lack of production in the pass game is more, again, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. I don't think it means he can't do it. I think it means he hasn't done it. I've been trying so hard not to say Johnny Walker the whole time. So this comment is amazing. Only thing better than Kenneth Walker is Johnny Walker. I like Kenneth Walker. I loved him during the year. I like Breece too. But again, both of these guys, and you mentioned Isaiah Spiller. I love his vision. I love his playmaking ability. I love his feet. But all of these guys have an elite trait or characteristic that you could add to this offense and potentially take the Bills to another level. And even if you're not talking about the Bills, they all offer something elite that a team would covet or craft. And I really don't think you're going wrong either way. If you're a team and you're taking the first running back off the board and it's Breece Hall, cool. If it's Kenneth Walker, cool. Those are my top two. I think they both have skill sets and traits that'll make your team better and elevate that position grouping and elevate your team. For me, I think Walker is a bit more the scheme fit for the Bills, given how they're going to run zone and also run some gap, given his archetype build in terms of stature and size and what he adds and his skill set. I honestly love him. Like, he's my favorite running back prospect. I've loved him for the majority of the year. The tape speaks to it as well, but I understand why people have Breece up there, and I think he would be a fine pick too for a lot of teams.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to either two of those, and I'm not opposed to Isaiah Spiller. I wouldn't do it at 25. I wouldn't do it I probably, I don't see the Bills trading out of 25. If they did, I could see, like one realistic trade scenario. I could see the Bills trading back from 25 to 32 and the Lions trade in Detroit moving up to get in front of the teams that are going to be taking wide receivers, the Chiefs, the Packers, things like that.
Good. Walker, I hardly know her.
And then I could see them moving back, and then maybe they could justify the reason for taking a running back at 32. I don't think it would be Isaiah Spiller, but if they did take Isaiah Spiller, I think realistically he could be there at 57. Again, he's one of those bigger running backs. You don't see a lot of guys at 6'1", 215 move the way he does. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in high school, he ran the 100-meter dash in 11.25 seconds. His dad, Fred, played at Texas A&M and was gonna, was on track to play in the NFL as a tight end, but didn't end up playing. But then just from the skill set on the field, I mean, he moves really well for a player his size. He has really good patience, which I think is what I like the most about him is just how patient he is. He lets
Yes.
things develop. He's one of those players that in a zone scheme, I think he hits things really well because he reads and he has the patience to let
Mm-hmm.
guys, slide to their right, reach to their left, reach to the right, whatever it might be. He's able to let those things to develop. I do think it would be beneficial for him to actually share a backfield, and I think maybe a team like the Bills makes a lot of sense because again, some of the pieces that we already know that they have. But from a pass catching perspective, he's got 70 career receptions. He shows a lot of stuff on swing passes, screens, things like that. So I think Spiller makes sense. And maybe he, at some point develops into like a Melvin Gordon or something just because of his overall size and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So maybe he can develop into that type of player. Is it possible? Yes. Is it unlikely? It's maybe a little bit more unlikely than it is likely because there's so much uncertainty with these guys. But these are the three guys that I would be like, okay, this makes sense. But at 25, the guy I'm taking is Walker. And then if I move back, then I, again, would try to take one of these guys.
The Bills have reached for a Spiller in the first round before, so it wouldn't be crazy if they did again. I wanted to hit on that last topic, that last statement, I should say, that you made before we leave and start talking about some day 2 and day 3 guys here. If the Bills are sitting there at 25 and would you consider running back over right now, given how the team is constructed? Would you consider where would you rank running back or Kenneth Walker in particular, along with corner and receiver? Like, can you make a case as an outside observer of the Buffalo Bills for them taking, let's say, Andrew Booth is there, Kenneth Walker is there, either Booth or McDuffie are there, Kenneth Walker's there, and Jamison Williams.
Oh, God, you had to throw him in there.
I knew that one would get you harder.
Awesome. That's what she said.
You always left me satisfied and smiling.
That's what she said. Man, the Jamison Williams one, that's tough because one, I don't
Bruce
know if
Arians just retired. Sorry, continue. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well,
What?
sorry.
Maybe Tom Brady is going to be out of there and he's going to go to Miami. Who
Oh,
knows?
come on, dude. Don't do that.
I'm sorry. Man, I think I would probably go if Jamison's there. With the way the team is constructed and the way the offense works, I would probably take Jamison just for the simple fact that I just feel like the upside is there as far as just making this offense just as explosive. I would probably go Jamison, Walker, McDuffie, Booth.
Oh, wow. You'd put Walker above McDuffie and Booth.
And I'm only doing that because, again, I don't know. And I don't know if there's a realistic chance McDuffie's going to be there. And I understand in this scenario, he's there. Booth, I can see being there, but I can also see a lot of teams passing on him because not only did he have one injury, he had 2 injuries. And it's like the injuries are now piling up during the most important part of his career.
And his
So
2021 tape is not great.
It's not great. It's really not. Like, it's good tape, but it's not great. And
especially compared to what his 2020 was.
yeah, and I found it really funny how the more I looked, I saw people saying he was a top 10 pick, a top 15 pick, and now all of a sudden it's like, is this guy even a first rounder? And it's like, oh, so you got around to the tape. I get it now. But also, again, the injuries. So from where I think this offense could go, I would be focused on let's try to score more points, because also my hesitation with a corner in year one is it's hard to get a cornerback to be super productive in his first year in the NFL. Where I think Jamison, regardless of the injury, if you get him for 12 games, he might be able to get you 900 to 1,000 yards. But again, you're getting a really productive receiver on a 5th-year option. You're getting a productive running back on a 5th-year option. So I would go that route, but I can't get out of my head Jameson Williams at 17 to the Chargers. I've been talking about that on the Draft Show podcast on Woodward Sports. I've been talking about it on Twitter.
Yeah, we
And
talked
then
about it
again,
in the mock draft episode last week on the
yeah,
draft pod. Yeah,
yeah, McDuffie, I could see being gone just because the Eagles have 3 picks. The Patriots are there at 21. And I know that would break your heart,
I
but
would be distraught.
that's the draft. And again, Andrew Booth, he would be last on the list. So I'm just trying to break it down as much as possible without like just jumping in.
No, that's fine. I brought up those names because those are, hot names now in the Bills community. People are starting to see the boards and the mocks and are starting to hear all these good things. And so, again, I'm not one of those people. I've been on McDuffie since like January. I love him, and Kyler
Yeah.
Gordon. But
Yeah.
those are like the hot button. Everybody's been on Jameson Williams. Now you've got a running back in play. And then you've got Booth and McDuffie, and those are like these hot button names. So I want to get your thought there. Now we're going to pivot. We're going to still keep talking about running backs here, but this one is more of best running back fits for the Bills. So we talked about the top 3 guys. We talked about the Breeces and the Kenneth Walkers and the Isaiah Spillers. Now we start to creep into more of overall fit. So you're sitting here, maybe in the second round and those 3 guys are gone. But now we're starting to talk more of like the 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, guys who aren't those top 3 guys and their potential fit for the Bills. I'll start, Russ, so because you started a lot, but I figure you just spoke. I'll let you take a breath. I'll go first here. Somebody who I mentioned earlier, I really like the idea of James Cook potentially coming to the Bills. I like his size and speed. So 5'11", 190 pounds, 4'4", 240. What I really like with him, in addition to the receiving ability, which I'll talk about in a minute, is he's got the real game speed that changes defender angles. Kenneth Walker has it as well. Breece has it a bit. It's one of the things I love about Kenneth Walker. You see safeties. You see it in that big time touchdown around the 55-yarder against Michigan. The safety's got him dead to rights, and then Walker's speed is just so real that he makes the angle wrong in the blink of an eye and takes it to the house, much like Travis Etienne did last year. James Cook has that ability. He's not as sharp or as sudden in his cuts and in his movements, but he's got that speed that it's seamless. He can just keep moving. He can change direction and not lose speed. He changes defender angles. And then on top of that, you add in his contact balance, his receiving threat ability. You can line him at an X and let him run receiver routes and he can function. You could put him in the slot. You can use him on the jet sweeps and the orbit motions. You can use him in tunnel screens, middle screens, bubble screens, stuff out of the backfield, check down, swing passes. And I think so he is an individual player, someone I like, but also in terms of that like mold and that archetype, I want that receiving threat running back in this backfield for Josh Allen. I want someone who can function in pass protection, but also function out in the receiving game. You can line them up and create a 5 receiving threat option because you motion him out of the backfield, or you have that presence back there that defenses have to honor. He's one that I'm targeting towards more of the earlier part of day 3. So you're looking at like round 4, or even honestly the back end of day 2. If you're looking at round 3, he's on my list. And then I've got one more who I want to talk about, actually several, but I figured I'd go with that one first. Want you to go with one now. So that way, because again, we're a tag team. I tag you in, I sit back, I hang out on the turnbuckle, I hold the rope, I wait for you to do your thing, and then you tag me back in when you're good to go.
Put the boot up on the top rope and just slam the head in there.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, so just kind of going with the trend of what you're saying as far as like the running back that can catch passes out of the backfield, I would probably say as like that day 2, maybe early day 3 option would be Rashad White out of out of Arizona State.
We talked about him last night. Home run threat ability, athleticism, receiving.
Yeah, he's a super smooth operator. He runs with really good patience and really good vision overall. I like how similar to some of the backs I've talked about already, letting the blocks develop in front of him. That's really key for me. I hate guys that make too sudden of a decision and get themselves in trouble and can't get themselves out of it. But I think from a pass catching standpoint, he does a really good job. He had over 450, receiving yards in 2021. And I thought down at the Senior Bowl too, like watching him really patient, did a really good job just hitting and having that burst that stands out. And I think as somebody that, sure, could clean some things up, pass protection, blitz pickup could get better. He doesn't run through contact as well as you would like. But I think in that fourth round area, somebody that could complement this backfield, because again, if you're against the train of taking a true RB1 in the first or second round, which again, you might not even get that RB1 in the second round, but if you're against that idea and you just want a complementary piece, I think White, Cook, both those guys make sense as far as that missing piece from catching, passes consistently, but also kind of give you some of that burst and speed in the open
Yes.
field that maybe you're missing. And I think White and Cook do a really good job of that. So that would be my pick for kind of that trend of overall player to catch passes. I do have, two other players I would briefly
Ooh,
want to
hit him.
touch on,
Hit
but
him, hit him.
I don't have to talk about them yet. If you want to, go on to what you got, or I don't know what questions we have following. I'm
No, feel
sorry.
free. You're the guest. You can talk about your two guys. I'll talk about my next couple, and then we'll talk about the strength of this class as a whole, and then we'll start to wrap up. So feel free.
All
Go
right.
ahead. Talk about your
Yeah.
dudes.
Well, so like the next guy, as far as overall speed, it kind of catches you by surprise because he's 5'10", 210, doesn't really look like a fast guy. But Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati,
Nice.
I think when you think of just scheme, overall understanding, responsibility or role within an offense, that one makes sense because Desmond Ritter did so much of like RPO zone read stuff. If Josh Allen does that, you understand that Jerome Ford is going to come in and probably fit
Mm,
right in and fill that void maybe that you're missing, but also
mm,
just track speed. It's there in high school, 100-meter dash, ran it in 10.5 seconds. I think he can definitely process faster. Fumbles are a big concern with him.
mm,
I think he can definitely cut back into piles at times, which is a big no-no, but size, athletic ability, that's a big thing with me. Good burst, explosiveness through the openings. It's all there where I think he can do it. Now, pass catching isn't necessarily his forte. It might
mm.
not be something he can develop. We don't really know. He didn't do.
More like not his Ford Tay. Am I right? Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, exactly. But he played in Alabama for 2 years. Was a part of a backfield that had Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, Brian Robinson. So he was kind of the odd man out. I think you put him here. I don't think he would be the odd man out. I think he's somebody that you could feed the football to 15, maybe 20 times a game. We'll say 15 just to get the other guys involved. But I like that fit as a late round option somewhere. And then the other one, just one of my personal favorites, Tyler Algier,
Ooh.
reminds me so much of Damian Harris coming out of Alabama.
Ooh, nice
Um,
comp.
I think, there's ball security concerns. There's definitely times where I think he has to like roll his hips and, lower his pad level in pass protection. There's some hesitation to his game, but he's a physical downhill runner with terrific size at 5'11", 220. The thick, strong lower body is going to do him wonders in the NFL. And again, just somebody that I think there's speed to his game. 100-meter dash time of 11.14 seconds in
Mhm.
2018. He, ran a bunch of marathons growing up and in high school, did marathon walks. So he's like really good for the community, but also just one of those guys that I think as like he builds up speed, the play speed is there.
Mm.
And I think as maybe that third or fourth round, he could be into the mix.
Ooh, I like who you brought to the table for this episode. I also like that I have a lot of guys listed, and I was like, whoever Russ doesn't talk about, I'm going to talk about. So
Sorry
that
if I
way we
stole
don't.
your guys.
No, you didn't. You did. You did your thing. I'm going to talk about the guy who I mentioned him earlier. He's my favorite running back in this class. I am enamored with Brian Robinson Jr. from Alabama. I have said this in the DMs. I've said it in conversations on Twitter. He's the type of running back that he's not the sexiest and he's not the flashiest. He's the guy who will play running back in the NFL until he's like 32, 33, 34 because he
Yeah.
just does everything so technically well. He's smart. He's aware. He's coached up playing down there at Alabama. And again, the initial size, he was listed at 6'1", but at the combine, he measured at 6'2". So he's 6'2", 225 pounds, and he runs a 4.5 40, a 4.53, so a low 4.5, which is very good considering he's a 225-pound horse. And that
Yeah.
speed shows up on game film. He's got power. He's got contact balance. I put out a bunch of clips on Twitter this week of it just taking it in multiple games against different opponents. It takes an army to bring him down. He just runs through tackle after tackle, and it'll take 2, 3, 4, 5 guys to bring him down. He's got good feet. You mentioned earlier his cuts. He makes very decisive, sudden cuts. He plants and bang. It's not rounded. It's not multiple feet and make a stutter. It's one cut, boom. He can change direction almost on a dime. And you combine that with his vision and his ability to set up blocks. He can make guys miss in the hole. And I also think his receiving ability is underrated a bit. He doesn't get talked about enough for his soft hands and his ability to function coming out of the backfield when he's not running the ball and when he's not blocking. And that's also another piece. For me, I think he's the best pass blocking running back in this draft. He can form you up on a blitzer coming through the hole, coming through the gap. He can scan and pick up the edge guy coming off and cut and flip. I really like what I see on tape from him. He already, to me, at Alabama, whether it's the size, whether it's the skill set, whether it's the way that he shows up, he just looks like a professional NFL running back. I just see him translating very well. And then again, you pair him with a Devin Singletary. I mentioned earlier, like just giving me some of those skill sets or traits. He's someone who, I don't think he has the home run speed, but he has the burst and quickness that I think is a complementary piece to Singletary, but then also his power, his size, and his pass protection and receiving ability. I think that is a nice compliment as well. And all of a sudden you add a hammer who, there was the comment earlier, right? Like a better running back saves Josh Allen from having to bolt and take those hits on 3rd and 3.
Yep.
You want to take advantage of light boxes, or you want to run the ball a little more inside? Give it to your 6'2", 225-pound running back who runs a low 4.5 40 and let him eat those light boxes. Something, again, which he also did at Alabama, because you're not going heavy box against Bryce Young and John Mechie and Jamison Williams and the cast of characters that they have at Alabama. Brian Robinson is used to running with zone run schemes, using those RPO looks and zone reads, taking advantage of light boxes, being physical. He's a really nice target I've had on my. Initially, I thought the Bills could maybe get him round 5. He's starting to creep up a little bit in the talks. I think maybe he could go as early as round 3. I think round 4 is the sweet spot, but he's somebody who I really, really like on day 3, and I would be very happy if the Bills came away with him.
I love Brian Robinson. He's like that 4th round option. I think Kyron Williams is the best pass blocker right now, or guy that can pick up blitzes. But I think from a projection standpoint and potentially longevity in the NFL, I think Brian Robinson probably projects better. Thank you, Scott. I think it projects better for him in the NFL, obviously just because of his size. But I have a TikTok out there at Russ NFL Drafts. If you want to follow me on TikTok, I only post football videos, and I only do it like once every 2 weeks. So have fun with that. But because I just forget about it.
Yeah,
right. But with that being said, Brian Robinson, I put him out there on there, and it's like, dude, I have all these like lateral cuts from him where it's like, man, this guy is it's impressive for his size. So yeah, I'm with you on Robinson. I didn't talk about him because I knew you liked him.
I appreciate you. See, that's why, again, tag team. That's why we're the champs. We got the belts. We're going into the Hall of Fame. That's fantastic. The last part of the show here, last segment that I want to dive into is just this class as a whole. I think, we've talked about some specific scheme fits. We've talked about the top of the class, potential round 1 guys, and Walker and Spiller and all these, again, specific plugs and everything. But yeah, Kendall hit it. That was the best / worst shameless plug ever.
What I'm here for.
Well said. Well, that's what you're here for. This class, we've done it with each. We did it with the corners when we first started this position breakdown. We did it for wide receiver last week. Let's talk about this running back class, top to bottom. I think it's also a position grouping that's almost similar to wide receiver in terms of the pick your flavor type of thing, because there's different running backs that may be better based on what team they go to, given the skill set that they have and given what they can do. But, I pass the mic to you here. I tag you back in. What are your thoughts on this overall draft class, top to bottom, strengths, weaknesses, overall value here that you see?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys I really like. I mean, I know Pops is putting in here no love for
Dameon Pierce from Florida.
That's not true. Dameon Pierce is on the intro video of the Cover One Draft Show. Love myself from Dameon Pierce, but also I have 14 guys graded, and we didn't get into Hassan Haskins, we didn't get into
Pierre
Pierce, we didn't get in,
Strong. Yeah.
Pierre Strong, Zonovan Knight, Tyler Goodson, Abram Smith, McCormick from UTSA, Pierre Strong, like you mentioned. There's quite a few
Mhm.
guys that we didn't get into, but 14 on my board that are graded within essentially the first 5 or 6 rounds of this draft. So I like this group a lot. And I know, we can sit here all day and say, when are the Bills taking a running back? We don't need one, just better offensive line. Just get ready to draft a running back, because here's the numbers, right? In 2019, there were 25 running backs selected. In 2017, there were 26 running backs selected. And I only go back 5 years because I started with cover one in 2017. But in the last 5 years, there's been 107 running backs selected, an average of 21.4 in the draft.
Wow.
So
Nice.
you have all these picks. You have everybody going to be kind of chomping at the bit here, like Hungry Hippo style, going after the same thing. And with that being said, I mean, like, this team's going to draft a back at some point. They're going to do it. And it might be one of these guys we're talking about. It's a deep class. Like, maybe it's not necessarily top heavy where you've
Hmm.
got that top 10 stud or top 25 stud, that maybe quote unquote sure thing. With running backs, there is no sure thing because of the beating that they take in the NFL.
Yeah.
But I will say, I would much rather have that running back taking that beating than my quarterback any day of the week. And I think at some point this team's going to draft one. And I like this group a lot. I think, like you mentioned, a lot of pick your flavor. Whether you're, on the team Kenneth Walker train, or maybe you're on the, Jerome Ford train, or it is James Cook or Breece Hall. It doesn't
Mhm.
really matter. But I like it overall. I think, probably by the time we get into rounds 5 or 6, I could very well see the 14 guys I have up on the board gone. And we could definitely see 17 by then, 17 or 18 by then.
That's a really good point. I have so many thoughts going on in my head right now because you said so many good things. Like, I really like Tyler Goodson and the guys in the back end. Like, I started thinking of all the guys like we didn't speak about, and Damian Pierce and Tyler Goodson and McCormick's of the world. And it is a deep class. Like, this is a position grouping where you're starting to see more. Oh, appreciate you. Why? Thank you very much. He says, great show, guys. I think we're starting to see more. Again, the days of the 3 down bell cow running back aren't really there anymore. You're not seeing running backs taken in the top 5 every year. Running backs aren't the guys winning the Heisman every year. You're not seeing that type of investment. Kids that are playing high school ball and middle school ball, they want to play quarterback. They want to play wide receiver. That's what they see on Sundays. That's where the money is. That's where the shine is. So what you're getting in the running back groups now are more specialized or skill set dudes. There's not a ton of complete running backs, guys who can do it all. And that's where that pick your flavor comes in. But again, that's why I like this class. Like, overall, and especially how it fits the Bills, but I want to talk about it overall. I think it's deep from the perspective, exactly like you said, and what I said as well, the whole pick your flavor. Like, there is, if you want a pass catching running back, there's a variety of pass catching running backs you can go with. If you want a home run threat, there's a variety of home run threat. If you want power and physicality, there's a variety of that. Like, there is depth in the depth of the class based on what skill set and trait you want and how you're trying to
Yep.
fit that into your team. And I think that's a really cool thing. And that's also, what throws the wild cards into everything, because you might have a team who says, you know what, we really want a speedy pass catching back. We're going to take James Cook in the second round. Or maybe somebody falls in love with Pierre Strong's tape and they take him at the beginning of the third. Or somebody thinks Brian Robinson is professional as hell and
Yeah.
we're going to take him in round 3. Or somebody thinks Algiers strip in that game against, who was against Arizona State. Is that what the rundown and he jumps around and swings and punches it? No, not Arizona State, but San Diego State. It's a state. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But he has that
I
sick.
think it was San Diego State.
Right, there we go. I thought it was San Diego. I think they're black and it's got the red. It's not Arizona State because why would they play them? It is San Diego State because it's got to be Mountain West. Um,
Yeah.
that's sick. Maybe somebody likes that punch and that athleticism and that determination, and they're like, boom, you know what? Plus his long speed, he's the running back I want, and I love his production. There is so many. Oh, thanks, Ron. Ron says, great show, boys. Hit that like. Maybe somebody falls in
Ron's
love
the
with
man.
Rashad White. Ron is the man. Maybe somebody falls in love with Rashad White and thinks, you know what? He doesn't have a lot of mileage on those tires, and you see the explosivity and the dual threat purpose. I'm going to take him a little earlier. Or again, the people who think Breece Hall's a round one guy. Maybe somebody trades back into the top 25 and takes Breece Hall. Maybe somebody takes Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker in the first round. Like, there's so many opportunities given the
What
skill
if
sets. Go ahead.
what if Philly takes a running back? I mean, they have 3 picks in the first round. They have so much draft capital. Miles Sanders isn't getting it done. What if they're just like, you know what? We're gonna take Breece Hall and we're gonna move forward. I mean, you never know. Or
We
Kenneth
want to
Walker.
we want to
You
run
never
read
know.
option with Jalen Hurts and Kenneth Walker, or we want to run that with Breece Hall. Like, you want to add a
Bingo.
stud running back. Boom. Like, maybe that's that receiver option, or the offensive weapon Philly adds. Maybe it's not a receiver. Maybe it's a running back. Like, there's so many wild card opportunities because, one, you have that with teams in general. Like, you never know what someone's board's looking like. You never see behind the scenes, behind the curtains, too much of that. Ron has a good comment. We broke down Max Borghi a little bit last night on the film room from Washington State. He's got some jitterbug, run after the catch ability and receiving ability come out of
Yeah.
the backfield, and he has been linked a little bit. He's a guy that could potentially go undrafted, but he's like a 5th round, 6th round, maybe even 7th round guy. But maybe someone splashes earlier because they like his dual threat and dynamic ability that he adds.
He's an H-back, man. He's an H-back.
Well, I think 5'11", 207 pounds. He can catch. He can run, like a little thicker in the shoulders, thick frame overall.
I could see a team being like, yo, add 15 pounds. You're our H-back. You know what I mean?
Be our
You're
Kyle
gonna move
Juszczyk.
around. Boom.
Like, that's what's so fun with this position grouping, given that it's not seen as this premium position anymore from like
Yeah.
a holistic standpoint, but it is from a chess piece standpoint. And teams that are successful, they have those running backs that you can mix and match and take advantage and create plus matchups and opportunities for your offense. And there's so many guys in this draft from top to bottom that offer you mismatch potential. Yikes, it's late. That offer you that mismatch potential and the opportunity to play chess and maneuver the board however you want. I think that's what's really exciting about this class. That's also part of the reason why I don't necessarily want running back in round 1 for the Buffalo Bills, because I think there is so much depth to this class. And I would love to get Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker or Isaiah Spiller. I'd also be very much almost just as ecstatic if they got Cook or Rashad White or Brian Robinson or Pierre Strong, like any of these guys in rounds 3, 4, or 5. I mentioned it earlier. I really like Tyler Goodson. He can come out of the backfield and do some things. Like, there's a lot of flavor in this draft. And if you're a team like the Bills, that's a complete team, and you're just looking to add another chess piece, there's a lot of potential for those chess pieces. And again, for teams in general, who, whether you're trying to find that number 1 guy or you're trying to find a complementary piece to add one more little wrinkle to your offense, there's a lot of potential for this draft class. And I think there's a lot of potential with you and I, and that's why we're the Steiner brothers. That's why we're fantastic. And Hall of Fame, guaranteed. I appreciate you stopping by as well. You are a man in demand. You are busy, whether it's professionally, whether it's life with your family. You are fantastic. I appreciate you, Russ, for taking the time to ride with me on this episode again. You're one of my favorite people in this universe, and especially on the Cover One team. And I appreciate you, and you know your stuff. So thank you for stopping by. And why don't you, just in case people don't know, tell all the people where they can find you, what you do, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, brother. The feeling is mutual for sure. Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft. Of course, as I always say, smash that follow button. But yeah, all my work over at Cover One, you can find it at cover1.net. And there's, just search for my profile. There's mock drafts, there's the podcast, there's player breakdowns, the whole 9.
Yes.
And then, of course, you can go over to Woodward Sports and check out their Twitter page, their YouTube. Tons of subscribers there. We do a lot of stuff, just, Metro Detroit stuff. I mean, that's the market that we're in, but a lot of great stuff with that. And, I do a lot of national just draft stuff right now. And, obviously in the coming weeks, we'll really put a focus on the Lions and stuff like that. But no, always fun. Always enjoy these Wednesday shows with you, getting deep into detail on some of these players and different positions and all that stuff. So it was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to being back, and second night of the draft, that's our night. So join us on that little plug for the future.
Hell yeah, we're gonna be rolling it back and running it back like we did last year. No pun intended there with running it back and running back any of that kind of stuff. But yeah, you are we are one of the best in the biz. I suggest everybody give Russ a follow. just for his draft knowledge, football knowledge in general. He's somebody that will make you more knowledgeable and understand this game better. And I don't say that in jest. I mean that sincerely. Pops, I talked about it earlier, but I'll talk about it one more time as we ride out. One Pie Pizza is the best pizza in Buffalo. Delicious homemade sweet sauce pie made by great people, homemade blue cheese. You guys know the deal. You guys also know the deal with how appreciative I am of you. Thank you very much to everybody who rode with us live on this episode. If you didn't ride with us live on this episode, that's fine. Whether you're watching later, listening later, thank you very much for your listen, your download, your view, anything and everything. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. Please rate and review and subscribe to Cover One. We have you covered every single night of the week with tremendous football content and Bills content and draft content and anything and everything that you need in between. Appreciate you guys so much. The chat was jumping tonight. It was fantastic. This is another one of those nights that it was on fire. This is another one of those nights where we could have had no content prepared and just sat and waited and, kind of chat. You shot the stuff between us back and forth a little bit for 10 minutes and then just let the chat blow up and we could have just engaged. Like that's the kind of night it was. So thank you guys very much for riding with us live. Drop a like on this video, please. And thank you very much. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones all stay safe and are doing well. Thank you very much to all the kind words and the comments that were said to us throughout tonight. Thank you very much for the super chats. Thank you very much for you guys in general. You guys are tremendously supportive. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. Southside Chris says I've always wanted to try One Pie. Dude, you need to immediately. It's fantastic. They're on Clinton. Go get yourself some right now. Actually, they're closed. Go get some tomorrow. It's fantastic. It'll change your life. I'm dead serious. They're got my stamp of approval. I love them. They're fantastic. Appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Hope you and your family and friends and loved ones all stay safe. Thank you very much to Mr. Russell Brown. We'll see you guys next week. And as always, go Bills.